I am Kamali, taking you through the stories people are talking about and sharing around the world on NewsFeed today. South Koreans and Mexicans now after helping El Tricolor qualify the magic of the World Cup. Justice for Noura, a global social media campaign succeeds. We ask whether this kind of hashtag activism is gaining strength. Left Banksy, the street artist, reveals his work in the City of Lights.
Girl, I must.
And this animal doing stuff is taking part in a lip-sync battle with his partner. Top of our news feed, the beautiful game. South Korea beat Germany 2-0 to knock the reigning champions out of the World Cup. Now, the upset meant that Mexico qualified for the next round, and that was the cue for what really makes football the best game in the world. Well, Mexican fans grabbed any South Koreans they could find to celebrate. This was filmed outside the stadium. What's even more fun about this is the guy is holding a Swedish flag. Sweden also qualified for the next round. And things were going off in Mexico City as you can expect. This South Korean tourist was hoisted aloft and cheered. And now the best bits. Mexican fans were so thankful they took it to a diplomatic level. First thanking the Consul General here. And then taking it up a notch by going to find the ambassador. Bravo Mexico, bravo South Korea. We are loving this World Cup. And keeping the good times going, Senegal take on Colombia today. Now, this video was posted on Twitter of the Senegalese team doing a synchronized warm-up. It's been shared hundreds of thousands of times, all because someone set it to the DuckTales theme tune. Well, staying with the World Cup, but on something a little more serious now. Russia's billion-dollar stadiums may be wonderful for the time being, but what will become of them in a few years' time? Tamina takes a look.
Could all these shiny new stadiums end up like this? Billions are pumped into these arenas to have them ready in time for major events like the World Cup. But what happens after the excitement dies down? In 2014, Brazil hosted the World Cup at an estimated cost of $15 billion that helped build enormous stadiums that are now being used by homeless squatters and as parking lots. And South Africa spent more than $3 billion on the 2010 World Cup. Cape Town Stadium has been a financial burden on the local government. Many have called for it to be demolished and replaced with affordable public housing. The idea behind hosting the Cup, as always, is that revenue generated from the tournaments, as well as from tourism, will make up for the expense of building. But often that's not the case, and local teams struggle to fill the huge stadiums. It's also not just the World Cup. The Olympics has a history of building these huge venues with no potential for reuse. Once the event is over, some of them end up like this, abandoned and unused. Some facilities in Brazil were even reportedly closed because the bills weren't being paid. The Winter Olympics in Sochi were notorious for huge budgets and little reuse. Now countries are refusing to bid for the Olympics in light of the controversial budget blowouts in Brazil and Russia. But hosting such events isn't always a bad thing. Like in Australia, where since the Sydney 2000 Games, the Olympic hub has been transformed into its own suburb, with hotels and restaurants. Olympic venues now host thousands of events each year, from music festivals to football matches. So why do countries feel the need to host these events in the first place? There's no denying that countries often put in bids to host these sporting events for prestige or soft power. Sport is used by nations to control their own image, showcasing their culture and promoting their economic strength. So is this enough for countries to justify pumping billions into stadiums?
All right, let's take a look at what else has been trending on social media. Now, the rapper 50 Cent has been slammed for an Instagram post mocking the alleged sexual assault of the actor Terry Crews. Earlier this week, Crews was speaking about his experience when 50 posted this awful meme, making fun of Crews, who says he froze when he was assaulted. Now, 50 has deleted the post, which kind of proves he knows he was out of line. Ironically, this is exactly the kind of toxic masculinity that Terry Crews was speaking out against. Facebook's newest feature, Keyword Snooze, will allow users to block out words or phrases from appearing on their timeline for 30 days. Facebook says it's so people can avoid spoilers for things like Westworld or Game of Thrones, but there is some concern it would also be used to block out the stuff like, say, the war in Syria, which will lead to more head in the sand syndrome. And since many young people get their news from social media, that's not good. Now, here on NewsFeed, we've been covering the Justice for Noura campaign for the past few months. Yesterday, there was finally some good news. Noura's death sentence has been overturned. Now, I'll be speaking to one of the lead campaigners in a second, but first, why was this campaign able to succeed where others have failed?
Took you so long to surrender, Harvey? It's surrendering on a mission of
So let's talk to Wafame Elamin, who, as I said, has worked tirelessly to keep this campaign in the news. Wafame, thank you so much for joining us. First off, can you tell us where the current legal process is and if you know how Noura is?
Yeah, so currently the appeal has been submitted by the attorney, and recently it was returned back in record time. Her sentencing was reduced to 5 years from the day that she was detained, which is May 3rd, 2017. And Noura has to provide the monetary dia retribution, which equates to about $19,000 US. And this deceased family, they still have an option to appeal this ruling, the same way that Noura's defense team had the option to appeal the initial sentencing. You know, they're all incredibly satisfied with the ruling because it just means that Noura gets to live again. Noura and her defense team, they're very content with the decision.
And how is Noura? Have we heard anything from her?
We've just heard that she's heard of the ruling and that she's glad that she's going to have a chance to live.
Absolutely. Now, before we spoke to you, we mentioned that there have been other high-profile social media campaigns. Why do you think that this one was able to cut through so well and actually gain the success that it did?
I think the core reason for that, first of all, the support and the success has been unparalleled. The main reason, I think, it's because it's been grassroots-led. The people who are leading it are Sudanese diaspora members, and we've really been trying to utilize our knowledge of our culture and tradition to advocate for the policies and the laws that happen within Sudan and the traditions and the cultural things. That's, I think, the main reason. And the socio-political climate in Sudan and around the world, I think people have been really joining a lot of movements and the unified effort. It's been a singular voice. It's just been a call to humanity, and the world answered.
It definitely was a call to humanity. And just outside of this, Wafame, if you can answer a bigger question for me, these kind of social media campaigns, do you think that we're now entering a time where they're going to gain more strength each time that they're enacted? These kind of hashtag activism campaigns will get stronger and stronger each time?
I do think they'll get stronger and stronger each time, especially if the approach is as unified as possible and not divisive. I think that's one of the biggest things that was within this campaign. There wasn't a lot of divisive rhetoric that split people against each other. It was more so just laying out the facts and allowing people to use their own human and moral judgment to fight and advocate for it. And if the other social media campaigns continue in that direction, I think there's a lot of potential for change to happen in the world.
Absolutely. Okay, Wafame, congratulations again, and thank you so much for joining us. Now, we've brought you many stories about violence against women in India. It's a massive problem, and now a new report has exposed just how big an issue it is. Let's take you around the world for some other stories you need to know this Thursday. 17-year-old Anton Rose was unarmed when he was shot and killed by police in Pittsburgh after fleeing when the car he was in was stopped earlier this month. This is video from the incident. Now, the cop who shot him has been charged with criminal homicide. He's a 30-year-old called Michael Rosfeld. The man accused of driving his car into anti-fascist protesters in the US city of Charlottesville last year has been indicted on federal hate crime charges. One woman died when James Alex Fields allegedly rammed his car through the crowd. He's already been charged with first-degree murder, but now the new hate crime charges means he could face a death penalty if convicted. Now, when stencil murals started popping up on walls around Paris a few days ago, many suspected there could only be one guy responsible. He then revealed his latest work on Instagram.
The theme that really stuck has to do with the migrant issue. You see this little girl who's covering up a swastika, and I think Banksy's genius lies in the fact that, beyond the aesthetics of his stencils, he's always incredibly in sync with the current political movement. We witnessed the Aquarius drifting at sea, Italy refusing to take in more migrants, Emmanuel Macron getting all of Europe together to decide on measures to welcome migrants, and precisely at that moment, once again, Banksy's here, speaking to us, and raises awareness among the public, among young people, and that's his strength and his magic.
Et donc c'est ça sa force, c'est ça sa magie.
Thursday's Animals Doing Stuff is a police dog with the San Antonio K9 unit, and his handler, Sergeant Lopez, doing a lip-sync challenge to the 90s hip-hop hit Poison by Belle Biv DeVoe. Enjoy. Well, that is your lot from the NewsFeed team. Reach out to me with your questions, comments, complaints and suggestions. I'm at Kamali Melbourne. You'll find us 24/7 on Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. Follow, subscribe and add. See you again tomorrow.